Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. I'm your host, Paul Shaughnessy, joined in studio by your friend and mine, Mr. Cody Saftic. You know, we have UFC on Fox 28/Orlando going on this weekend, but I just wanted to ask you if you had any takeaways from last week's event.
Wow, the biggest takeaway here, Paul, is the curse has been lifted. You officially got your first main event of the year.
Thank you to Tim Anderson. The curse really came in at the right time. Things were looking pretty dire. You could be on a 2-event winning streak here had you just stuck with Yoel Romero, but all the same, we'll take the curse lifted. And that's my biggest takeaway here, Paul. As cursed as you or anybody might be in the world, Tim Anderson is always far more cursed. So if you're looking for hot plays, just ask him. Whoever he tells you, go the opposite direction, probably going to be a good time. The thing about MMA with Tim, though, is that he doesn't actually know who any of these people are. He just typically will see like who I'm touting or talking up and say that he really likes them. The thing with that Yancey one is that he just kind of out of the blue said Yancey. He has no idea who Yancey Medeiros was. But this is what I figured out. It was a great sign for me. This is what I figured out, is that he doesn't know who these people are. But the curse doesn't know who these people are. It doesn't know. It just goes against him. And Tim is beyond curse. So, yeah, good event all around, and a lot of good plays came through. So, for me anyways, let's keep the momentum rolling. Do you know who started the curse, the shag fade curse? At the beginning of 2018? Doo Ho Choi versus one Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens, who finds himself in the main event of UFC Fight Night Orlando. He's taking on Josh Emmett. Jeremy Stevens, 8,600 on DraftKings, minus 160 on the betting line. Mr. Josh Emmett is 7,600 plus 140, the comeback. I'm interested to hear your take here. I'm seeing a lot of, I think people are pretty split on this one across the board. I'll let you take this one away first, but I have a general thought on it. I don't feel great about this one, though. No, it's going to be another close main event. I really feel like for Jeremy Stevens, he is who we thought he was. And yeah, he came over a big win over Doo Ho Choi. That's a fight that I was very on the fence about. Another fight I'm on the fence about is him versus Josh Emmett. I know that you were backing Doo Ho Choi, but Doo Ho Choi, there was a lot of uncertainties. We just didn't really know how good he really was, and we knew that he might have trouble if a firefight was to occur because we saw him versus Cub Swanson, and it happened. With Jeremy Stevens, the guy's got 40 professional fights. He's got many losses at this level already. We've seen the best of Jeremy Stevens, and even though he appears to be increasingly getting better, I honestly feel like we know who he is. With Josh Emmett on the flip side, he kind of seemed like a prototypical fighter. He's a good wrestler, alpha male guy, very athletic, striking's pretty good, not quite a spring chicken, not one of these young prospects coming up the ranks, but a strong, durable fighter. But Josh Emmett at 145 pounds is really showing to me anyways that maybe he wasn't the thought. He was not the guy we thought he was. Saying 145 pounds may be a bit of a stretch considering this guy didn't make 145 pounds. Yeah, well, the main thing is that the trend for the year is if you don't make weight, it doesn't really matter. So if Josh You'll still get a title shot if you're Yoel Romero and you don't make weight. If Josh Emmett is to miss, similar to if John Lineker is to miss, similar if to a lot of these fighters are to miss, it doesn't really seem to matter. Unless you're Gilbert Burns and you come in 31 pounds overweight. Yeah, but Gilbert Burns, I still would have been ever so slightly favoring him over Olivier Aubé-Mercier. He came in 10 pounds heavy in that fight. Oh, well, then of course I would have taken it. Other people would have bet on the other side. I would have taken it just like, if he gets it to the ground, maybe he can kind of... Ollie would be a tough guy to muscle around on the ground. Yeah, plus if you take a page from like Trinaldo's book or Cowboy Oliveira's book or Michel Prazeres' book, who cares if they're 10 pounds overweight? Usually seems to work out pretty good. But going back to this fight, yeah, I expect Josh Emmett to make the weight. This is his now 3rd attempt trying to make 145 pounds. And really, he just seems like he's a little faster than Jeremy Stevens. He's a little more explosive Jeremy Stevens. He's going to have that wrestling edge, although it's going to be hard to take down Jeremy Stevens. Does he have a 5-round gas tank, though? Well, that's the big unknown. That's the big unknown. The one thing about Emmett, I've been pretty much wrong on him. I didn't think he was going to get past Ricardo Lamas. No, I had Lamas in his last fight, and he proved me wrong. He showed that, like, you know, that fight against Felipe Arantes, that power where he knocked down Arantes 4 times in that. I think it was the first round. He got like 4 knockdowns, or maybe first and second round. First round. He ended up finishing him in the second. But getting those knockdowns, those were for real, and we obviously saw it in his follow-up fight against Ricardo Lamas. My question is, with Jeremy Stevens, one thing you can never deny about this guy, guy can take punishment. He's been doing it his whole career. Has he even been knocked out?
Yeah, Yves Edwards, the only time.
Years ago.
And that was a nasty elbow.
And that's going to happen to everybody, especially when you have 40 fights in the ranks of the UFC. But if Emmett doesn't knock him out in the first couple rounds, we've seen Stephens go 5 rounds against Cub Swanson. He lost that fight, but you know he didn't show poorly in that fight. If this gets to round 3 or round 4 and 5,
I hear you.
It's going to be tricky for Emmett, who I think we have seen slow down. And we haven't seen this guy make 145 pounds cleanly.
You know what? I can agree with you on a lot of those points. We haven't seen him go 5 rounds. If he has trouble making the weight, and he's a monstrous guy at 145 pounds, he is going to have trouble making the weight. And you look at fights like him versus Tuck, for example. I mean, yeah, the guy totally gets tired. He totally starts to fade. I'm almost just feeling like this is him in a new spot in his career where he's reinvigorated, where he's going to go in there with a sense of, not a sense of urgency for any stretch, but he knows he wants to crack into that upper echelon. He knows he wants to fight the best guys. Jeremy Stephens is in the same boat, but Jeremy Stephens has just been through the motions so many times that sometimes he goes in there in the fight like Hanato Moicano. I know we talked about that prior to the Doo Ho Choi fight, where this is not a super dynamic striker, but the guy's a little faster than you. He'll backpedal you. He'll make you work for it. And Jeremy Stephens, he wants the firefight. He wants to slug with you. He wants to keep his hands down at his hip side and trying to counter you when you hit him in the face because he knows he can take that shot. But against guys that are a little more dynamic than him, he usually struggles. Now, you make a huge point here. If Josh Emmett comes out and he wins the first couple rounds, Jeremy Stephens probably still going to be conscious. And if he's still conscious, he's still in the fight. And if he's still in the fight, he's always going to be dangerous, especially against a faded opponent. I'm kind of thinking that Emmett's going to be the faster guy. He's not above just backpedaling. He's not like he's got to pressure forward the entire time. He'll dance around. He'll lull Jeremy Stephens to moving forward, and he'll try to counter off that. But 5 rounds, you make a huge point here. If Josh Emmett does get fatigued, then yeah, it's got to play into the favor of the more durable and more seasoned, more experienced, probably better cardio fighter in Jeremy Stephens. Looking at the line, plus 140 Josh Emmett, I don't mind the line. That being said, it's probably closer to a pick'em as far as I'm concerned. The 5 rounds is definitely, if this is 3-round fight.
If this is 3-round fight, I actually like Emmett at that price.
But you're persuading me
on the 5-round fight Emmett. Is what you mean Stephens.
Yeah, you're persuading me onto Stephens.
The 5 rounds is the game changer.
And now that the curse has officially been lifted, I'm more prone to actually say, you know what, Paul, I think you talked me off the ledge.
Yeah, I like both of these guys on DraftKings. I think you could kind of mix both. I think we're going to see a lot, like a high pressure, high volume type of striking affair. And even if it's not even striking, Emmett could just go to his wrestling. He could land a lot of takedowns. Like there's a lot of ways this fight could go. They're both pretty well rounded. I don't see Stephens going out there and putting on a wrestling clinic against Emmett. That's like the one thing I wouldn't see. But I think either way, both of these guys, if it goes 5 rounds, are going to score well, probably stackable in cash. The only thing you're fading is an early knockout on one side. And either way, if you're stacking that in cash, that's going to score pretty well for you. The betting line, it's kind of a stay away from me. It's Stephens only because it's 5 rounds. If it was the same price, as we were just saying, as it is right now, and it was a 3-round fight, I would probably be leaning towards an Emmett pick. But those extra 2 rounds is what worries me with Josh Emmett at a weight class that he still hasn't mastered getting down to.
Yeah, I hear you.
And gas tank issues at 155 pounds before
You know, something worth monitoring is Josh Emmett wins the first couple rounds and you live bet Jeremy Stephens knowing he's got 3 more to work with and Emmett's probably getting tired. But then again, you got to see how Emmett is. Like you said, you expect a high volume striking affair, and I don't, because Josh Emmett's not the kind of guy that's going to go out there and throw combinations. He's going to throw singular shots for the most part. And I think that because he's the faster guy and he's going to see Jeremy Stephens moving forward, he's going to angle off, he's going to try to counter. And if he just conserves himself, doesn't blow his load, doesn't realize, oh my God, I can knock this guy out, go for it, then who knows. And the final other thing is, yeah, Jeremy Stephens can take one hell of a shot, but nobody saw that Lamas fight going down the way it was. Maybe Emmett is better as a 45-er where that punch is going to do far more damage. Felipe Arantes, dude, let's face it, that guy's a bantamweight. Dropping him 3 times is very impressive. But the Lamas fight, it's like not only did he knock him out,
he knocked him right out.
Dude, he soul snatched him. Like, bad. Like, that was like, oh, dude, this guy's never going to be the same. Oh, my God. Emmett may be better. But you're right. 5 round is really key here, so that's worth monitoring.
The last thing I will say about this before we move on is Team Alpha Male has a history of having these up-and-comers step up into the spotlight and really shine.
Right.
TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt. We've seen this a whole bunch. We've seen this narrative before. Is Josh Emmett one of those guys? We'll find out on Saturday. Anyway, let's move on down the card. We got Jessica Andrade taking on TECIA TORRES. Jessica Andrade, 9,200 on DraftKings, minus 320 on the betting line. TECIA TORRES, 7,000 plus 260 underdog. What's your take?
It's just a bad line, but otherwise I think we're in agreement that Jessica Andrade, the way to beat TECIA TORRES is pressure her, man. Like, if you're pressuring her and you can get her back against the cage, you can walk her down. She's fast, she's athletic, she'll angle off and try to counter. But if you just keep that constant pressure on her, you will eventually break her down. Especially if you can mix in takedowns, which Andrade can. Andrade is probably the strongest strawweight out there. We saw her at 135 pounds back when there was no flyweight division, there was no strawweight division, and she's slamming girls like Raquel Pennington on her head. She is supremely strong. If she can corner down a girl like TECIA TORRES, she'll be throwing her around. If it stays standing, TECIA TORRES is a good volume puncher. She's a good technical puncher, but she really lacks a lot of that punching power that Andrade has, and Andrade will just be able to back her up.
Yeah, none of her punches are going to scare her at all.
Yeah, and the fact is, like, we used to joke around back in the day, like, this girl has no reach, especially at 135. But at 115, it's not really like the reach matters all that much, because it's not as if TECIA TORRES has
Johnny Lineker.
Yeah, exactly.
At 115 pounds.
Reach doesn't matter if you just close that distance all the time. Jessica Andrade closes the distance all the time. She's never one to take a step backwards. The fight with Claudia Gadelha, I thought Claudia Gadelha had a hot start, but the fact is, when you're dealing with someone who pressures you every single second of the round, you need to finish them or you need to be a brilliant fighter. Claudia Gadelha is a brilliant fighter. Gas tank maybe gave out on her, but even more so, people say, oh, well, you know, her gas tank's not all that good. She's got tired in the past. It's damage. Damage tires you out way more than you thinking your cardiovascular conditioning is giving out on you. Now, TECIA TORRES has a decent run in her last couple of fights, 10-1 overall. I thought she beat Rose Namajunas for that lone loss on her record. But if you look at those girls that she's fighting, the only ones that could be considered pressure fighters, which is Beck Rawlings and Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger, not on the level of Andrade, first of all. And they're supremely slow. They're lethargic. They just plod forward and they get tagged. The other girl she's fighting, Michelle Watterson or Rose Namajunas, not really pressure fighters. So Jessica Andrade is a different kind of beast. I think she's going to march her down. I think she's going to land on her. I totally see this fight going the distance, but it's a fight that's going to go the distance where I see, even though TECIA TORRES spent a lot of time at American Top Team, spent a lot of time in Florida, I don't think that, you know, home cooking is being an issue here. I think Andrade gets the win. The thing is, if you're looking at it for straight betting line, minus 320 for Andrade is just a very heavy price considering the fight's probably going to go the distance. And TECIA TORRES should probably be undefeated. One of the best girls in the division. She's not a stepping stone. She's not an easy victory by no stretch, so it's big. Now you're looking at the betting line. Andrade is one of these girls.
It's just so wide.
You're looking at the DK line. 9,200. It's like Andrade typically has a lot of volume. She typically scores a whole lot.
And TECIA may be able to backpedal and stay out of trouble.
So I don't really see the price adding up. She may actually be able to
stay out of trouble for that first round.
Yeah.
So it's just like, then you're actually like, she may be able to backpedal, keep away from that pressure. I think eventually, as we get into like 7.5 minutes, it's tough to continuously do that. But at that, 9,200, you want that person securing that first takedown early and pounding away, because some other people in that price range are going to be scoring big.
Even though I think that Jessica Andrade is going to get the victory, I think if you're playing cash game DK,
100%.
I don't think TECIA TORRES is a
Great
bad
play.
call. Because even if you look at Andrade versus Angela Hill, Angela Hill still manages like 88 significant strikes. Fight stays standing. Now TECIA TORRES is way better than
because you have a faster striker with somebody else who's just happy to stand in the pocket. So maybe 1-2 step aside.
And $7,000. Talk about saving money.
She may not win, but if she could get like 30 points, like, it allows you in a cash game scenario, not a GPP, but cash game scenario, to pay up for the other people at the top.
Totally agree there.
So I think we're 100% on the same page.
Price is not right, but
which is terrifying. So TECIA TORRES first round knockout.
Only 2 fights in, Paul. Let's shake it up a bit here.
Moving on down, we got OVINCE St. Preux taking on ILIR, the Sledgehammer Latifi. OSP is 8,300 on DraftKings, minus 125 on the betting line. Latifi 7,900 plus 105. You know where I'm going on this one.
Yeah, totally. When do you ever go against Latifi?
Never.
Very few and far between.
I was even thinking about just before we came in here when we were outside. The Latifi versus Bader. That was such a stupid spot for me to be on Latifi. I think it was like plus 225 or something like that. So like the value was relatively there. But that's a bad matchup for Latifi. He's got to land the kill shot because it's like he can't go to that wrestling.
See, I agree and I also disagree there. I think the thing with Latifi is that he is as good as we think he is. He's a very good wrestler. His striking, even though it leaves a little to the imagination, so much power that if he just hits you, he's going to do a lot of damage.
And his height is a big advantage for that wrestling kind of game that he has.
Yes, it's an advantage, and in the case of the Ryan Bader fight, it's also a disadvantage because it's a knee to the face that was probably supposed to be a kick. A kick wouldn't have really done anything. It probably would have whizzed over his head. Yeah. Thing is he's so short, the knee catches him. But that's the way to beat Latifi. I'm not saying you need a fluke strike, but you need some dynamic stuff to hit this guy. The fight with Jan Blachowicz, it's a body shot. I heard he had a pre-existing rib injury coming in, but all the same, body kick's a body kick, baby. You land that right on the liver, it's gonna fold guys down. You don't see it very often because it's a more of a rare strike. That knee to the face from Ryan Bader, he's doing good in the fight with Ryan Bader. He's backing up, he's having his way with Ryan Bader. Unfortunately, he gets caught with the knee in the face. OVINCE St. Preux is not, he's capable of landing that shot, but he also gets into these lulls where he doesn't do nothing.
Tired.
And his wrestling defense.
If ILIR gets across the cage, takes him down in that first round, I'm not even worried all that much about the kill shot. I know he finished Corey Anderson, who is super chinny, in round 3, but he was getting mauled by Corey Anderson.
He's getting mauled.
Somebody, I forget who, asked me on Twitter, they're like, well, do you think ILIR Latifi's a better wrestler than Corey Anderson?
It's a different type of wrestling.
It's a different type of wrestling. He's shorter, stockier, has a better chin. I love Latifi. 7,900. DraftKings, just 7,900. And he's going to be going for takedowns. He has the opportunity maybe to go for a kill shot. And, you know, he's coming off that win over Pedro. Pedro may be a little bit overrated, but he completely controlled the entirety of that fight.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at OVINCE St. Preux, the biggest issues that he's had in his career is mostly the takedown defense. Yeah. Ryan Bader took this guy down at will. Glover Teixeira took this guy down at will. Now, people will say, man, you look good against John Jones in the takedown department. And I agree with that. But going back to your point, it's a different type of wrestling. Jones is super lanky, so he'll get the takedown on you. But there's room. It's
hard for him to get down to those hips.
There's room to explode back up because he gives you space because he's so long. Whereas Latifi, the second you hit the ground, he's already on top of you. And he just has so much weight. I feel like if the fight stays standing, Latifi will do a good job of just pushing him back. OVINCE St. Preux, again, he's one of these guys that, similar to and we will talk about it, similar to a Sam Alvey, is that he'll go down on the scorecards waiting for that big shot. He doesn't always go out there and pressure. He doesn't always go out there and do strikes. He'll try to counterpunch. The phase-out
fight is what we're really thinking of here.
Yeah, well, I mean, he hurt his leg in that fight, but all the same, he just doesn't do anything. The Volkan Oezdemir fight. Oezdemir is on short notice. Now, people talk about Oezdemir's power. Oezdemir's power, not, well, I mean, I guess he hurt OSP a little bit, but it wasn't a huge factor in that fight. No. What was a factor is OSP not doing anything whilst Oezdemir stands in front of him and outworks him. In the third round, OSP wakes up, as he does in the Corey Anderson fight, as he does in other fights in his past, is that he wakes up a little bit, but if he's down 2 rounds and he can't land that shot, then it's going to be his opponent, and in this case, ILIR Latifi. I agree that he has a wrestling advantage. I don't think he has a striking advantage, mostly because of that range.
No, I don't either.
But he has the power advantage. Now, OSP, and you can hurt him, you can pressure him against the cage, you can stall him, you can take him down. There are paths to victory here for ILIR Latifi, and the biggest thing here is that he's a plus 105. It's pretty much an even fight, but it's a dog or pass for me, and I'm going to take the dog or Latifi.
I already moved in on it at plus 110 earlier in the week. I just didn't want the fights to get worse. One thing you could maybe do, we'll see, like sometimes the public will like see a weigh-in, and they'll see, I remember like back in the day, Ramdeen, he saw like the weigh-in between Cyril Diabate versus ILIR Latifi, and I was telling him like, Latifi's gonna kill him, and then he like sent me a picture of like the stare down between the two. It was like one guy's like 6'4", the other guy's 5'8", and it's just like, oh, you'll see. And sure enough, he absolutely destroyed him. Last thing I was gonna say about it is, you know, St. Preux's got the Von Preux choke or whatever you want to call it. Not, you know, he's got a somewhat sneaky submission game, but we've talked about it a million times on this show. If you don't have a neck, you can't get choked out.
I was just going to say, how are you going to Von Flue a guy who literally has no neck? I want to make my last point on this fight is if you see the weigh-ins and you think to yourself, dude, OSP is way
the price may actually get better.
Yeah, well, you'll realize that Latifi is going to ride into the weigh-ins on a horse. But then the time between the weigh-ins and the time between the fight, that horse is going to be gone. ILIR Latifi's going to be ready to fight, okay? So all I got to say is, I like Latifi. I think we're on the same page. We usually back Latifi, and he's on a pretty good run right now. You can catch him, but it's going to take a spectacular... This is fighting. You can knock out anybody with a spectacular strike. This guy's been defeated, and it's generally spectacular strikes.
He's been in Florida training for this too, so he's...
Yeah.
He's good to go. He's acclimatized. Let's go.
He's good to go. Plus, he's got some of the best training partners in the world, whereas no discredit to OVINCE St. Preux, but being out of Tennessee for as long as he has, I almost just wonder if we've seen the best of him, whereas Latifi seems to be incrementally getting better and better. He's young enough. This guy came into the UFC on a week's notice against Gegard Mousasi and got thrashed, but withstood it. And since then, despite him losing a couple fights along the way, I do think you see the improvements out of him. When he wins, dude, he wins spectacularly. When OSP wins, you're like, oh, he needed that knockout, or there was some type of issue, but he eventually got the win. This is not welterweight Yushin Okami he's fighting here. This is 205 pounds, where probably 200 of those 205 pounds are in his pecs, because, dude, this guy's huge. I just feel like, stylistically speaking, this should favor Latifi, and I expect him to get the victory.
Platinum Mike Perry takes on Max Payne Griffin. We got Perry, 9,400, most expensive guy on the DraftKings card. Max Griffin, 6,800. Minus 365 Perry, plus 305 Griffin. What's your take here?
You know what? I got mixed feelings on this. First and foremost, I just don't like the price. I feel like Mike Perry, for as fun and exciting and, you know, actually...
He's a character.
Yeah, for all of his downsides, he's a pretty likable guy. I think he's funny. I think he's got star qualities to him. But minus 365, like, he's not as talented as I would suggest. Now, he did so much better against Santiago Ponzinibbio than I expected him to. I expected him to just be the slower fighter who's not going to have the same type of striking arsenal. He's going to get tagged. He's going to get beat up. Maybe he gets finished, but all the same, he'll get beat up. And he's just got, like, a cast iron chin, or at least his chin seems to be very good. And it's not so much his cardio as much as it's his heart. This guy, you literally have to kill him for him to go down. He's just going to keep coming at you. And he's got a lot of power. That's the X factors he has. He's got heart like very few guys in this division. He's got power like very few guys in this division. Those should carry him over Max Griffin. Max Griffin, tall, lanky, rangy fighter. But we've seen in the past, namely his last fight against Aleksei Dos Santos.
Likes to go to war.
Yeah, if you go to war against Max Griffin, because he's long, because he's rangy, he is hittable. He doesn't move his head particularly well.
That's not a good way to
Not
to
a good spot to be in against Mike Perry. That being said, you watch training footage on Mike Perry, and he's just really not all that technical, man. He's a brawler, and that'll carry you across a lot of these guys, but the guys that are actual sharp strikers, the Alan Jouban, and Alan Jouban's no world beater, but Alan Jouban's a better striker than Perry, and he makes him pay and he eats him up. Against Santiago Ponzinibbio, Perry showed me a level of toughness that I had not seen from him before, but all the same, he just wasn't the better striker. When I think about Max Griffin, I think if this was strictly them hitting the bag or them just sparring in the gym, you'd look at Max Griffin, you'd be like, yo, dude, he's a better striker. But that all gets thrown out the window when you're physically in the octagon.
When you're in the pocket with Mike Perry and
your nose is broken.
And he's screaming at you.
You got a mouthful of nickels.
We're in like his hometown too.
Yeah, dude, he's fired up.
The crowd's gonna be on Perry's side. He's gonna be super fired. He's always fired up.
He's always fired up.
If he's like buying milk, he's fired up.
He just seems like a guy that's had such a chaotic past, whether it's going to jail, whether it's probably getting beat up mostly throughout elementary school and high school, just from being maybe a bit of an outcast, who knows. But when he goes in there, he's at home. And we talked about it before the show. We were talking about Donald Cerrone and how if you're buddy-buddy with Donald Cerrone, like Yancy Medeiros, he had the style to pressure this guy and hurt him, but he buddy-buddied with him. And when you do that with Cerrone, he gets a little bit of confidence, like, okay, maybe this is not going to be as bad as I thought it was going to be. He gets confident.
Mike Perry wants you to be angry at him.
Yeah, dude, these guys are all, for the most part, most of the fighters that I've dealt with, everybody deals with a type of anxiety, with a type of fear, and that's why they like to fight. That's why they're professional fighters, because it's a high. Getting in there and overcoming that fear and experiencing that stuff is a high unlike you're ever going to experience. Mike Perry's case, he's at home in that octagon. It seems like if this guy wasn't a professional fighter, he'd probably be in jail for punching somebody up. He's almost like, and I totally hate to make this comparison.
Well, he was in jail, and then that's when he started going to an MMA gym, like,
yeah,
pretty late.
But he crosses me as, and I know he would never be quite as extreme, but on a way more milder scale, he's kind of like War Machine, where like you screw up his order at a Wendy's and just punch you out, you know what I mean? Like, that's who he is. He's a chaotic guy. He's not going to put hands on a woman like Alex Nicholson, but That's who he is. But you see him training, and for the most part, he trains a lot at the UFC gym in Winter Springs, Florida. He trains a lot at a smaller gym with, you see him, some of his training partners, you know, they're 19-year-old kids, they're 22-year-old 2-0 amateur fighters. Like, he doesn't train with that highest level of guys, but it doesn't matter because when you go out there with him, he's going to make it a street fight. And when he makes it a street fight, it gets dirty and he's going to prevail. Max Griffin's the kind of guy that can get lured into those fights and can kind of come up short. That being said, I can't see myself paying the minus 365 money line. No. And for the 9,400
I don't feel
you
safe
can do
enough.
it, but you need the knockout.
You need that knockout in the first round.
And just know he's going to be heavily owned.
And a knockdown.
He's going to be heavily owned, man. A lot of people are going to favor him because they think he's got the style to knock out Griffin. Griffin's no
may
slouch.
need him. Like, it's not outlandish to think he gets that first round knockout.
No, it's not. And that's why I think he'll be heavily owned. Because I think if you look at this, especially if you look at tape, it's like, okay, listen, you might be hitting Perry, but at some point he's going to walk in that pocket, he's going to lay one flush on your jaw, and you're going to fold. If you don't fold, but you're even the slightest bit wobbled, he's going to notice that, he's going to swarm you, he's going to put you away. We've seen Griffin get knocked down in the past. It's not crazy to think that this is going to happen again in the first or second round. As I'm saying, though, here is that Griffin's probably slightly more technical. He's going to be way more rangy, and this could be one of those fights where you're like, come on, Perry, get him. Come on, Perry, get him. And Perry's moving in, but he's getting hit. Perry also doesn't throw a whole lot of kicks, whereas Dos Santos throws a lot of kicks. It's something to think about. Dos Santos could take you down. Griffin had to worry about that. Dos Santos can kick. Griffin had to worry about that. Dos Santos got good hands. That's what makes him a mixed martial artist. Perry's obviously a mixed martial artist, but he doesn't wrestle a whole lot. He doesn't kick a whole lot. So you only really got a game plan for him throwing lefts and rights at you, and that's a little more easier to deal with. So I'd be on Perry. I'd like it a lot more if it was, say, 220, 240, but 365, I think that's a testament to...
You got to be convinced that he gets that finish.
People love Perry.
Otherwise,
they want some money on Perry.
It hard.
Yeah,
You'll be sweating it hard.
Well, if he doesn't knock him out in the first round and Griffin's still there, then who knows? But like I said, dude, this guy doesn't have cardio issues because he's a banger. And bangers similar to Jeremy Stephens, they could be down 2 rounds, they're still marching forward, and they've got the type of power.
And if he's not taking all that much damage, like he took out Santiago in his last fight, and like I think he slowed down a bit, but like his cardio was a lot better than I thought, and a lot of that had to do with him. A lot of that had to do with him taking so much damage. Like I think that was his body shutting down more than his cardiovascular output shutting down. Moving on down the card, we got Renan Barao taking on Brian Kelleher. Renan Barao, 8,500 on DraftKings, 7,700 for Kelleher. Minus 145 Barao, plus 125 Kelleher. How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, dude, big time.
This guy was touted by Dana White as being like maybe the greatest pound-for-pound fighter in the world, the future of, you know, the bantamweight division, and holy, went up to 145. Pretty mixed bag of results, to be perfectly honest, from Renan Barao. He hasn't been the same guy since SARA ever came into the organization. I don't know how to feel about this one. Like, minus 145 on Renan Barao. Like, you wanna bet it because you're just like, come on. It's like the former champion. He trains at a good gym with a bunch of young Brazilian upstarts and killers.
Brazilians, old Brazilians, hundreds of Brazilians. That gym is massive.
Exactly, and he's one of the top guys coming out of that gym still.
He's actually on an American top team now, just so you know. Not a
is he?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed that. But, man, doesn't it feel like a massive trap here? Like,
no, I don't think so. I think it's a good value.
You like Barao?
Yeah, here's the thing with Barao. As much as I love laughing and saying
I like Barao too, but
USADA. I love that.
Like that line just screams.
I don't know
like,
that that's
terrifying to me. Like if this was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, this is like minus 700 plus 4.
Dude, the first time he fought Dillashaw, wasn't he like minus 500, minus 600? Like, think about how good he was at one point. See, this is the reason I don't necessarily think it was totally USADA. Like,
was he really that good, though? Like, a lot of his wins, when you look back on it now, it's like Eddie Wineland, that spinning kick. Like, Eddie Wineland is nothing special at 135
Yeah, Michael McDonald, really not as good as everyone thought he was.
All of the guys were kind of overhyped that he beat, which kind of vaulted him to like this status that he probably wasn't actually.
You can make that argument. You can make that argument for every past champion because as things progress, you got to roll with the times. But even if you're thinking, oh man, maybe Eddie Wineland wasn't as good as we thought. Maybe Uriah Faber wasn't as good as we thought. This Kelleher, and I like Kelleher, don't get me wrong. He kind of struggled against Damian Stasiak. Is Damian Stasiak ever any good? Like, I don't know. I don't think so. I know people are fans of him. I know he screwed me on that, Grant fight. But all the same, I just don't really think that you're looking at apples and oranges. This guy struggled at 145 pounds, people say, right? When you look at some of the guys he's fought at 145 pounds, whether it be Jeremy Stephens, whether it be Aljamain Sterling, they're all a cut above one Brian Kelleher, right? And when I think about this fight, when I think about Renan Barão, I really feel like his issue totally comes down to the weight cut. He's not a big 45er, which is why we've seen him struggle at 45. But he was a huge 35er, which is why we've seen him struggle once again. The guy's naked, passed out, trying to make weight, terrible weight cut. Then you go to Nova União, where you've got guys there that are fresh out of the favela who can bang, who trying to make a name. They're trying to beat. They got guys in that gym that are 10-0, and nobody has an idea who they are. And they might tell you their name, and you'd be like, "Yeah, I've seen you fight." No. It was a different Dos Santos, or it was a different fighter altogether. Like, there's so many of them, but they're all hungry, they're all young. You're going in there, and Jose Aldo had the same problem, and Claudio Gadelha had the same problem. You're going out there, and you're getting chewed up in training camp. Now it's coming fight time. You're already banged up. You've already taken 1,000 punches to the head prior to even getting in the ring. So him switching, similar to Dos Santos, Junior Dos Santos, who's at American Top Team as well, is when you switch and you go to a gym where they're less focused on just hard sparring rounds and more focused on let's develop an actual game plan, some of your other skills will develop. This guy's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and no Kelleher's good on the ground, but seeing Kelleher get caught by Alcantara, it's like, was it Alcantara? He caught Alcantara. Who caught him early?
I can't remember.
Tell you right now. Anyways, we know that he's good on the ground. His fights prior to coming to the UFC against Julio Arce, that's exactly it. So he catches Yuri Alcantara, and that's a big win for him. He gets caught in a first-round submission by Marlon Vera, right? Marlon Vera's not on the same grappling level as Renan Barão. Renan Barão is still stocky, still compact at 145. He, in my opinion, is going to be a better striker than Kelleher. He'll be backing up Kelleher. If this becomes a ground war, if Kelleher's best path to victory here is get his wrestling going, taking down Renan Barão, but traditionally speaking, Renan Barão's takedown defense is slick, man.
Anybody from the Nova União, getting raised in that gym, like that's what made them all champions during their days. That their game was designed to fight back against wrestlers.
Exactly.
Like great takedown defense, good Muay Thai, and great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
The whole system is keep this fight standing, and if the fight stays standing, then we're going to beat these guys with better Muay Thai skills. And I feel like Renan Barão, he's always going to be hard to take down. Kelleher's best path to victory for me is take this guy down, which I think is kind of off the table. Now, if it's going to be a straight grappling match, I kind of favor Renan Barão's grappling skills. If it's going to be a straight striking match, I also favor Renan Barão. I do admit, I think Kelleher is going to be slightly faster, and he probably angles a little bit better. But I think you can get to this guy, you can hurt him up, you can rough him up, you can catch him in a submission. I'm very certain of that. You can also just hurt him standing, take this guy into some deeper waters. Damian Stasiak didn't have that bad a performance. Eventually, Kelleher prevails and able to take him out. But all the same, it wasn't like it was... What would happen? You talk about how the mighty have fallen. How would Damian Stasiak do against Renan Barão? Let's be real here. How would he do? Probably not very good. So this is Renan Barão. I believe he's back at 135 pounds. And where that worried me originally is that he's not...
Is he going to make weight? I don't know if he's going to make weight.
If he doesn't, I don't care. Like we talked about.
Exactly.
I really don't care if
he misses weight. I'll throw something on him for sure.
But back at 135, he's not going to be that small featherweight anymore. So I do appreciate that out of him. And then maybe I'm buying into it a little bit too much. But hearing him talk, he sounds reinvigorated. He talks about how he's completely changed his diet, how he can make the weight now.
Is this a translator?
Yeah, wow. I don't know what the hell he's saying, but apparently he's not eating pizza no more, and that is good enough for me. And then being at American Top Team, he's going to have different types of training partners. When you're from Brazil, you have Brazilian training partners, and Brazilians fight a certain way. Russians fight a certain way. Americans fight a certain way. Put him in American Top Team. Let him deal with those D1, D2 level wrestlers. Let him deal with that type of American style boxing. Let him deal with those things, and he'll be more accustomed to fighting guys like that. He'll do better against the Brian Kellehers of the world. And then once again, this is not Renan Barão 2-1. This is Renan Barão minus 145. That is good pricing.
That's the weird thing about the pricing. Well, I just thought that he would be at least minus 200.
And the only reason people can't trust him anymore.
Exactly. It just seems a little... It just seems almost a little bit trappy. Like, of course, when you stare at it, it's just like, oh yeah, minus 145. But I just kind of wanted, before I made any moves on this, I wanted to talk to you. Yeah. I think you may have talked me onto a
BARAO play. I haven't seen many people making that BARAO play. Everyone is maybe almost overthinking it with the Kelleher play. Only time will tell whether we're right or completely wrong, and we have egg on our face. But
Saturday is that time to tell.
Exactly. Let's move on down. We got Sara McMann taking on Marion Renaud. Sara McMann 8,900 on DraftKings. Marion Renaud 7,300. Minus 240 for Sara McMann. Plus 200 Renaud. The way I see this is Sara McMann should have a significant power and strength advantage. But the problem is we've seen her a few times in her career. If she gets clipped, hit, she has been, you know, susceptible to getting finished or hurt. You know, she fought through it against Alexis Davis, but if you remember in that fight, she's like, I can't feel the side of my face and all of this.
Yeah.
Where I look at Renaud, she has shown some spurts of finishing ability in a way, like the Ashley Evans-Smith fight at the end of round 1 when she dropped her. Those types of spots, those types of moments could be where she, yeah, oh, absolutely.
Such a
those could be the types of spots where she could capitalize in this spot. When it goes to the ground, I know Renaud has decent jiu-jitsu off of her back.
She does, for sure.
I'm not concerned. I just think there'll be such a power and strength and positioning advantage for Sara McMann in those positions. The one thing I worry about, and this is why I can't parlay Sara McMann up, is just that propensity to get finished, to get hurt. And I just don't know if she does, if Renaud puts a swarm on her, if she will be able to put her away. Because if it just turns into a grappling, you're not gonna out grapple the Olympic level wrestler. Like nobody out wrestles Sara McMann. Like that just doesn't happen. Now she did get submitted by Ketlen Vieira in her last fight, so that is a possibility. I think Ketlen Vieira may be a little bit underrated and somebody that is for us to watch out for in the next couple of years. Renaud, let's face it, it's like a 39-year-old gym teacher.
Yeah.
Facts of fact. I think the slightly younger Sara McMann, who has a much higher pedigree, wins this more often than not. I can't really bet it, but DraftKings 8,900, if I see it playing out as take her down, maybe Renaud gets back up, that type of thing.
No, see, honestly, for my money's worth, 8,900 just seems too much, because if McMann takes her down, I don't really see her getting back up. She don't mind fighting off her back. She don't mind throwing up triangles, throwing up arm bars, and that doesn't lead you to getting back up. That usually leads to you just getting
hanging out for the rest of the round.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't care about the positional changes, because when you're a strong, stocky wrestler like Sara McMann, you don't even want side control or mount. You want half guard, right? You want half guard.
She likes going for that arm triangle.
She likes the arm triangle, and you can catch her in the arm triangle too. But yeah, for the most part, she just wants to soften you up, try to get the submission. There was a time where I honestly thought Sara McMann was the best female bantamweight in the planet. She coming off that Olympic silver medal. She trains out in, I believe, North Carolina with just straight up grindy wrestlers, man. She got a good camp, like good trustworthy people around her. I thought she was totally going to beat Ronda Rousey because judo versus wrestling. Come on, I'm gonna take wrestling all
her
day.
ability to get finished, or her propensity to get finished, showed up real big in that one.
She gets bombed in the body with a knee and she crumples over. And at first I was thinking like, well, maybe she can't take body shots, or maybe she hadn't been training for that. I mean, wrestlers don't usually eat big old knees in the gut, but I also think it's like the moment gets to her. And then since that fight, the moment gets to her, man. You can hit her. When you hit her, she gives up the submission. Or if you look at the Ketlen Vieira fight, once again, McMann starts out well.
This is the second fight down the card, though. This isn't even really a moment. This is just any other fight.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So if she's taking on a younger, hungrier fighter that's going to put her in some dangerous situations, then they're going to catch her because they're going to put it on her. But the Alexis Davis of the world, the Marion Renaud of the world, they're really not all that athletic. They're really not going to show you a whole lot. The one thing I am afraid of is Marion Renaud's pretty decent striker. She's a heavy striker, not really a volume striker. And she's a black belt in BJJ. So if she can even just clip McMann at some point, then she's got the skills to submit McMann. But I think McMann is bigger. She is stronger. She has a wallop of a right hand. She hits Renaud, just takes her time, scores takedowns, smothers her. This is going to be one of those greasy, boring-ass decisions where Sara McMann gets the victory. But that being said, slow-paced, boring decisions where it's like, yeah, you won the round because you got that takedown, but it wasn't like you put it on them. 240, don't like. 8,900 on DraftKings, don't like. So again, if you're playing cash game situations, Marion Renaud, I don't think's getting finished. So 7,300, if you're just looking for someone that could win, and if she wins, She could get a finish, but if she loses, she'll probably just go through the motions, not score a whole lot, but not get finished. It's not the worst price tag. For my money's worth, I would have to say this is a stay away, because similar to you, I was really high on McMahon, and I bet McMahon a bunch in the past, but one little thing goes against her, and next thing you know, she's tapping up from a submission.
Or even like
one little thing goes against her, and her game plan just completely goes out the window.
Or when you trust in her to like go and follow through with her game plan, and then she has that fight like she did against Jessica I, where she doesn't really go for any takedowns, and they just have a real tepid striking affair. When like you knew that like her big advantage is use that Olympic wrestling,
of course,
against Jessica I, and she doesn't do it. You're right. She is pretty untrustworthy across the board.
But even that fight with Jessica I is a much better striker, certainly on paper, than Sarah McMahon. But Sarah McMahon's got power. Because no disrespect to her, I know this is probably gonna sound disrespectful. She's built like a man. Have you seen her shoulders? Have you seen her arm? Like, she's jacked, dude. She's jacked. And that's why she can just take you down. She can have her way with you. I like Mama Bear McMahon. Always been a big fan of hers, 100%. She's also, she seems resilient, like her mindset. She's been through so much from her in her personal life that for her to still be at this level, to be still competing in the UFC, to be still thriving for victories, that's a huge kudos to her. But as strong and resilient as she seems in her life outside of the octagon, when she's in the octagon, it almost seems like she's second guessing herself. It almost seems like, I don't even know, Davis, it was a short elbow from the bottom that froze up the side of her face. And she is getting a little bit older. And all that stuff makes me worried. If you look at the Renan Barao line, Renan Barao was at the top of the game, and now he's taking on a very winnable fight, and they're giving you minus 145. I'd jump on it. Sarah McMahon was at the top of the game. Not quite as high as Renan Barao, but she was at the top of the game, fighting for titles, fighting the best girls in the division. Now she's fighting a very winnable opponent. You give me that same line. You give me 145 on Sarah McMahon all day. You give me 245, in this case minus 240 on Sarah McMahon, then I don't like it because the pricing just seems to be off.
Well said. Let's move on down the card. We got Angela Hill taking on Marina Moroz. Angela Hill, 8,200 on DraftKings, minus 160 on the betting line. Moroz, 8,000 plus 140. Everybody and their uncle is on Angela Hill this week. This is Angela Hill week. The line doesn't move all that well. It moved from opening. They opened it up real bad. Like they opened it up with her at like plus 105 or something, and it got steamed. But it's pretty much kind of bottomed out at this minus 160 spot. I don't know if you want to be trusting. I'm seeing people throw like massive amounts of coin or massive amounts of units at Angela Hill. And I feel as though this level...
Middling female strawweights.
I
don't know, man.
Like, remember the... And I'm not saying that I do like Hill in this spot. I think she's the more active striker. She's super tough.
Right there.
The problem with Moroz is that, that Danielle Taylor fight, she has zero accuracy. She landed like 8 of 80 strikes or something stupid like that. It was really, really low volume, and she landed nothing. But remember when she made her UFC debut against the one-dimensional female striker, and then nobody saw it coming because you look on tape and it just looks like you got someone who throws somebody who's a middle of the pack type of striker at 115 pounds, and she goes and gets the armbar against Joanne Calderwood. We're talking middling UFC strawweights here.
It almost seems like a flash in the pan because Calderwood, that victory was a huge upset.
I don't think you should be going too crazy on this one. This could be just a trash fight. I like Hill, 8,200. I think she's going to be very, very popular on DraftKings. So you got to be confident that she really puts the volume on Moroz to really be playing her in this spot. But that's my take here. I won't be betting Angela Hill. I just think I just don't trust. There's not enough trust for me to be laying something big on her. What's your take?
Yeah, so obviously this is going to be one of those fights that it could be a lot closer than I think a lot of people expect. I'm not the first one to come with this idea, but I think it comes down to Angela Hill's takedown defense, and she seems to have improved her takedown defense a lot. She can take one hell of a shot. She won 3 rounds with Jessica Andrade, where I think she got nailed with like 126 significant strikes. She herself landed 88 significant strikes. That's a war against Jessica Andrade.
And that shouldn't be an issue in this spot. It
shouldn't be that big of an issue. Now, when you look at Marina Moroz, she explodes into the UFC with that win over Calderwood, but literally, like I'm thinking, maybe that was just a flash in the pan. Because since then, she got soundly outstruck by Valerie Letourneau, who, I mean, physically even dropped her at one point. The Christina Stanciu fight. I know how low you are on Stanciu.
Bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, but it goes the distance, and it's like she landed something 54 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes. And
she's basically, besides the Calderwood fight, she is DraftKings cancer.
Dude, she's the worst. The Danielle Taylor fight is the real eye-opener.
That is the worst fight, maybe. That should go down in the annals as one of the worst UFC fights of all time.
Yeah, because Danielle Taylor, and I guess she backpedals, and I guess she's kind of elusive, but she has no reach, and she's 5 feet tall, man. I mean, if you can't go out there and you can't hit this girl.
You land your jab.
Nothing. She landed, and I don't normally go from stats, you know me, but this is a fight, to me, really plays out as far as stats.
Yeah.
Because she landed 17 significant strikes against Danielle Taylor, who I think also landed the same amount. Now, her versus Calderwood, it's a first-round finish. Let's throw that one out. Maybe that was just that fluke. Maybe that was Calderwood, who also has mental weakness. You never know what you're going to get out of Calderwood. She's fighting a girl she's never heard of, comes out of nowhere, hits her with some decent shots standing. She goes to the ground, she catches it in the armbar. Okay. Letourneau fight, she lands 55 significant strikes. That's on the high output for her. The fight with Stanciu, she landed 35. Christina Stanciu actually landed 39. So if you go by the numbers, they both landed 1 takedown each. I agree she won that fight. But technically speaking on paper, outstruck by Stanciu. Danielle Taylor, they both landed 17 significant strikes.
Nobody won. Everybody lost.
Everybody lost. Only people with insomnia won during that fight. The Carla Esparza fight, she getting taken down the whole time, but all the same, she only lands 38 significant strikes. So, the Valerie Letourneau fight was the only fight that she landed more than 50 significant strikes. Flip side to that, Angela Hill, who's going to have 3 inches in the height department, is going to be, they're roughly the same height, roughly the same length, get all that. Her versus Ansarov, a fight that I thought she cleanly lost. Not cleanly, it was a tough fight, but I was on Ansarov. Ansarov got the victory. She landed 107 significant strikes. Her versus Yoder, 47, despite her being taken down 3 times. Her versus Jessica Andrade, 89. Her versus Emily Kagan, who's terrible, 107. Dude, it's all volume. If you've got one person who the best performance
you're
of
basically
career,
looking at like 90 significant strikes if this goes 3 rounds from her, and if she really dominates in the striking affair, like it could be upwards.
If you go by the
so
numbers,
now you just created even more chalk on Angela.
Well,
Hill
if you go by the numbers,
for everybody.
Yeah, if you go by the numbers, Hill lands 2-1 in the significant strikes department. And I think that in itself is the key to victory. Now, the one thing with MOROZ is that she was apparently one of the coaches on the Ukrainian amateur boxing team. If anybody follows boxing, especially amateur boxing, Jesus Christ, Ukraine is like the highest level. Cuba, for mine, Cuba's number 1. US, I'll say number 2. Damn, Ukraine's up there in that number 3 spot. It's legit. The thing is that when you go in there, you can tell she's got good boxing, but she's not putting hands on her opponent. It's a lot of this, you know what, like it's like a range tester. They're trying to find you. They're trying to find you, but nothing's hitting. Nothing's hitting. Nothing's hitting. Whereas Angela Hill will go in there and she'll get into a greasy fight. If she gets nailed by MOROZ, her chin's good enough that she'll take the punch.
Yeah.
The only one worry is if MOROZ decides, I'm just going to take this girl down like I took Stanciu down, or I'm going to take this girl down and get into a position where she didn't take down Calderwood as much as she wobbled Calderwood and then ended up in a position where she could throw up the armbar from Calderwood on top. But if that doesn't present itself, then Angela Hill should be able to take it.
Yep.
She's not the most trustworthy girl, but the sheer
because the
output,
hole in her game is there.
Most definitely.
And I'm sure she's been working on. We've seen the improvements in her submission defense. But like, if somebody gets her back, you're going to be sweating real hard that she fights out of that because we haven't really seen her successfully really fight her way out of those types of positions. We did a
season of Bookie Beatdown back in the day when we were covering some tough fights and we were picking tough. And I remember you distinctively, you said Angela Hill, she was the 16th seed. She was 1-0 as a professional, comes from a Muay Thai background, 1-0 as a professional MMA fighter. You said, I know she's the 16th seed, but she's a fighter to watch out for. I don't know how good she is in grappling department, but she'd be one of those girls that it's easy to overlook. She fights Carla Esparza, the number 1 seed. Terrible matchup, she loses. Since then, she goes to the UFC. She takes girls like Rose on. They're better grapplers. But she's put in the work. She's not all that young. I think she's now 30. She's not all that young. But she's made those improvements in the wrestling defense department. She's made those improvements in the grappling department that now she can keep the fight standing. And if she keeps the fight standing, she is a striker by nature. Whereas MOROZ just doesn't have the output. But I don't love it. It sounds right now like it's like, oh, dude, how can Hill lose this fight? She's just going to double her up on strikes. I don't trust Hill. She's, in my opinion, untrustworthy. But minus 160 is not that bad. And who's more untrustworthy than MOROZ? So, yeah, I got Hill. I'm going to go Hill.
Alan Jouban takes on Ben Saunders in a fight between 2 guys with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. and two dudes that are chinny AF.
Is JOUBAN currently a black belt or is he still a brown belt?
I thought he was a black belt.
Well, to further your point, if they are both black belts, they're both 10th planet black belts.
Ooh. So it could be a lot of rubber guard.
No, what it is Ben Saunders' tricks. JOUBAN's seen those tricks. Yeah. JOUBAN keeps his fight standing. He's going to knock out Ben Saunders.
Yeah. So we got JOUBAN 9,100, Saunders 7,100, minus 270 betting line to Ben Saunders is plus 130, or sorry, plus 230. I think this one's pretty simple in my opinion. If it stays standing, eventually, I think JOUBAN has the crisper, more technical striking. Yeah. But the problem with him is it doesn't take much. A big shot, and this guy gets lit up. He was able to use his technique, as we were talking about Mike Perry earlier on. Use his technique, his mobility. He's very, very crafty and smart in there. But when people do hit him hard and they hit that chin, like this guy has like next level stank leg, and we've seen it multiple times. It doesn't take all that much. Does Ben Saunders have it in his arsenal to do it? I'm not willing to wager on that.
Let me cut you off. Let me cut you off. What? When you were talking about poor ability to take a strike and next level stank leg, thought you were talking about Ben Saunders. Listen, dude, they're both fairly chinny. And I know there's a lot of love for Ben Saunders coming out there because straight up, the dude's a gangster. He's so funny. He's a very cool guy, very smart guy. And he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's a fan favorite. The guy's been around for a long time. He's got such a cool style. I see people liking Ben Saunders, and I see people loving the price on Ben Saunders. I mean, dude, plus 230 against Alan JOUBAN. Could he win? Absolutely, he could win. I just don't like this necessary style for him. When he left the UFC the first time around, it's because he's so tall and lanky, he can't really stuff a takedown. He just ends up on his back. Since then, total progress in his actual grappling game. He comes to the UFC, but it's like, oh, dude, you got that omoplata. Yeah, over Chris Heatherly, man. Like, it's not a good level of competition.
Not low.
His last fight against Peter Sabata, killed, knocked out, killed. Prior to that, the Patrick Cote fight, dude, took a couple hockey punches, right? Was like, I'm gonna collar tie this guy, whack, whack, out cold. Then you look at the Douglas Lima fight, which is back in Bellator. That head kick, oh, dude, just ruined him. Prior to that, Douglas Lima the other time, knocked him out. Mike Swickway back in the day, takes him down, pounds him out. The guy's been KO'd 5 times in his career, and it's not the shot on the chin that seems to hurt him. Like JOUBAN, you nail him on the chin, dude, it's your chin. You leave your chin out there, you get into a firefight, you get hit right on the button, it's gonna hurt. With Ben Saunders, it seems like it's the side of his head. If you hit this guy in the temple, he loses his equilibrium. He loses equilibrium, he's so tall, he kind of stank legs, he falls to the ground, and the ref's gonna stop him. I feel like Ben Saunders is, 35 years old now? I feel like we've seen the best out of him. He's got the coolest grappling game, for my money's worth, and I know I've used that expression already probably too many times in this show already, but dude, I love his style, man, because he wraps you up in mission control, or he'll throw a rubber guard on you, and he pounds you with elbows. It's super cool. I honestly thought that the prototypical fighter that could be one of the highest level guys is Ben Saunders. Long, because you got to be long in this game. Eventually, when you get to the highest levels, the John Jones, that'll be the mold in the future where you're just long and rangy. That's the body type to have.
Tony Ferguson has the exact style that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the style that I honestly think will be the future, and I think that those are the best guys. If you can make that range, the Max Holloways of the world, you can make that range work for you. And I know Max Holloway doesn't really have the reach, but he's that long, skinny, lanky fighter with a good jiu-jitsu game. That's the best. Ben Saunders throws nasty kicks because he's so long. He's got a nasty clinch game with some nasty knees. And it works for him. And if you take him down, it doesn't matter if he has to stuff a takedown, because if you take him down, dude, he's just going to throw up nasty rubber guard on you.
I think this fight stays on the feet, though, and on the feet.
But that's the thing, is that his takedowns are not there, and JOUBAN realizes, I'm sure they've trained together because they're both 10th Planet System guys. I mean, you talk to Ben Saunders, he didn't want to fight Alan JOUBAN. He realizes it's a fun fight, and on a matchmaking standpoint, it's a good fight to put together. But these guys have a personal relationship with each other. And I feel like if you're Alan JOUBAN and you've worked that 10th Planet System before, you've seen this stuff. You've worked with guys that have this stuff. I feel like Ben Saunders is better on the ground, but he's not going to take JOUBAN down, and JOUBAN's not likely to decide to take this guy down. So now we got a striking battle. JOUBAN in the past has shown a propensity to kind of struggle with some taller guys. Remember that fight with Matt Dwyer, BC native, that it's kind of like a head kick almost. But JOUBAN runs into the pocket because he's trying to close some distance. He gets clipped. It's a half slip, half knockdown, but all the same, you and I, we watched that fight now. We were like, oh my God, JOUBAN, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's why everyone was surprised when he took on Perry. It makes sense in hindsight that Perry just wasn't technical enough to close that distance against him. But we've seen it in almost everyone, except for the one that seemed like it was going to be a glaring problem for JOUBAN. We've seen in most of his fights that when he gets clipped, like, it doesn't look very nice.
No, dude,
it looks real terrifying. That's why all I'm saying is that minus 270.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I don't like betting on.
I hear you.
I don't like betting on bad chins when you have that big price next to it. That's what scares me. And like, I don't know if he has the real power. He may have the power to get the first round knockout against Ben Saunders and pay off that $9,100 price tag. I think that's kind of expensive when you think about Alan Jouban. Not exactly a high volume type of striker, more of a counter striker, a little bit low volume. I wouldn't be surprised to see this go into the second round, maybe even the third round. Hell, even decision wouldn't shock me. I think a second or third round finish for Jouban is what I kind of see happening in this spot, but I think you kind of need that based on the level of his volume. I think to get that $9,100 price tag, to get it paid off for and the points that he brings back to you, you're really looking for that first round finish. Yeah,
and Ben Saunders is an old school guy. He's an OG, for lack of a better term, that he's not usually in boring fights. He's going to bring the fire to you. The thing is that he can't really handle the fire. Neither can Jouban. We talk about Saunders being 35. Jouban's actually 36. If I hadn't seen his last fight, I'd be willing to pay this $270 all day. But speaking of price, Nico Price blasted him, right? And that makes you think, yes, if you're a shorter guy like Perry and you're moving forward and you're throwing, Jouban's a little longer, a little quicker, you know, has better angles, he'll just backpedal and hit you. Backpedal and hit you. Eventually you stand in front of him, he can move forward on you, and he can hit you. He's got good striking arsenal. But against Ben Saunders, he's the longer guy, and he's going to be able to land some shots on you. If you can't take those shots, you got an issue. The one thing, though, is when I think about Jouban and how he's getting knocked out, is you got to have heavy hands. Hands are what's usually getting the job done. You nail him with a big straight right. You nail him with that uppercut from hell, which we've seen him just get bombed on. Whereas Ben Saunders doesn't really have hands. He has knees, he has kicks, he has a great ground game.
And that all happens on the inside, and Jouban's probably going to try to keep this on the outside.
Yeah.
And he should be the faster, a little bit more athletic guy, be able to keep it on the outside.
Yeah, remember that fight with him and Bilal Muhammad where it's like he just hits Bilal Muhammad with the kitchen sink and then whatever pipe is connecting the kitchen sink into the wall, man. That stuff puts Ben Saunders down. The shots he hit Perry with puts Perry down. I'll admit he doesn't have the greatest chin out there, but I got a gut feeling that he's going to land that shot before Ben Saunders has a chance to land it. First two rounds.
First two rounds. Prediction from Cody. Moving on down the card, we got Marcin Prachnio. I'm sure I butchered that one. Taking on Smiling Sam Alvey at 205 pounds. Prachnio, 9,000 on DK, minus 250 on the betting line. Sam Alvey, 7,200 plus 210. Interesting spot. Prachnio, for anybody who doesn't really know him, kind of a karate guy from Poland. Likes to put the heat on you. Really, really aggressive. Sam Alvey, former 185 pounder, moving up to 205 here. I don't really hate it. The thing about Alvey is he's frustrating if you ever want to make a play on him, because he's just going to stand back, wait until you close that distance, and he's got a good left hand, and he's pretty accurate, and he's got some decent power with it. But sometimes he'll just wait, and it's just like, round 3 is over, and just like, Sam, you didn't throw anything that whole entire fight. I think Prachnio may bring the fight to him, which the one thing we've always talked about with Sam Alvey is guy can take a punch. I know Derek Brunson put him away. That was 185 pounds. I'm not even too concerned about him moving up to 205 because now he's got an extra 15 pounds to work with. That's going to just kind of continue to illuminate the fact that this guy can take damage. He's always been hard to take down. I don't really see Prachnio trying to take him down in this spot. Maybe he tries to go for takedowns, but we never really see that from Smiling Sam all that much either. I don't know if I'm going to make a play yet, but I am leaning Sam Alvey at that price tag, plus 210. And Sam Alvey in a GPP if Prachnio closes that distance, comes in hot fire, and Sam Alvey lands that left hand right on the chin, I think a GPP play, Smiling Sam, is not the worst play on the board at 7,200.
Yeah, no, honestly, dude, I hear you. If you're looking for someone who's a moderate-sized underdog that has a shot, Sam Alvey's got the shot here. Yes, he's a very frustrating guy to watch. Yeah. We've outlined that pretty much in every single Sam Alvey fight. The other thing that kind of gets to me here is that Sam Alvey can 100% win this fight if he chose to use his wrestling. He trains at a Dan Henderson's Ultimate Training facility, right?
He never chooses to use his wrestling.
Dude, he's had 13 UFC fights and he has never completed a single takedown. Is that not the craziest stat?
And we always talk about it because when he takes
what the hell, Sam?
When he takes on wrestlers, it's just like it's hard to take down. Like he spends all the time with wrestlers. He must have an offensive wrestling game. But like he only ever uses defensive wrestling, which is very, very good.
Yeah.
But he'll just stand back there, do nothing, do nothing, do nothing. First round is over, and then maybe he'll throw the left a couple times. At 7,200, I'm not, you know, at 7,200, I'm not too scared about, hey, it may just fall flat on your face. Nothing happens, and you know, I think he's going to be able to survive quite a long ways in this fight.
Listen, I mean,
and at 7,200, it's just like we're just looking for that kill shot. But 7,200 is not a bad price to pay on DraftKings for a guy who could land the kill shot.
Yeah, and a guy that's landed the kill shot many times, a lot of the times in the very first
against
round.
Guys who try to pressure him.
Yeah, dude, in middling opponents, you know, the Kevin Casey of the world or the Eric Spicy of the world, or I consider Dan Kelly a middling opponent. Those guys, man, he'll land the kill shot on them. The guys that might be a little bit better than those guys, whether it's Rashad Evans or a Nate Marquardt, he can still beat them, you know? Low volume versus low volume. It's when guys pressure him, but it's mostly when guys can pin him up against the cage. His last fight against Ameev, A, he's taking that fight on very short notice. B, I had hung out with him like a month prior and he was 225 pounds, trying to drop down to 185, botches his weight cut, comes in overweight, misses weight, first time in his career, and doesn't have a good performance. But Ameev's a guy that's super strong that could pin you up against the cage. Those are all issues that are going against him. I'd like to see him use his wrestling, the fact that he trains at a gym with a lot of good ground specialists, with a lot of good wrestlers. He doesn't use his grappling as much as I would like to see him use it because he's probably fallen in love a little bit with that one-shot power. He knows he's got that shot. He knows he's got a great chin. He doesn't mind getting to these battles. What I really found was interesting about Marcin Prachnio is they did like a UFC questionnaire with him and they said, what are your thoughts on Sam Alvey? And he's like, oh, dude, Sam Alvey always moves forward. I think I'm going to knock him out in the first round. I was like, are we talking about the same guy? Have you ever watched it? Move forward. No, the only time I've ever seen him move forward was Elias Theodorou, and that's because that motherfucker does not move forward. What are you gonna do? Yeah. You can't not move forward against Elias. He doesn't move forward. That was the only time I see Alvey literally, unless he's got you hurt, let's be honest. He's got a killer instinct. If you're doing the stank leg in front of him, he's gonna try to finish you, he's gonna charge after you. But for the most part, he's just cool with being that counterpuncher. And I feel like that's a way to beat Prachnio, because Prachnio coming from that karate base, I watched most of his ONE FC fights. I had to work, obviously, a lot of them, and he prefers to be a counterpuncher. It's a karate style. They want to counterpunch. If you stand in front of him and you don't throw anything, he is young enough, he is aggressive, he wants to throw strikes, so he waits for you. But if you don't throw anything, he'll throw, and he's wild and he's reckless, and he has been knocked out before in the third round. So I feel like he'll give you openings. His most notable fight was against Leandro Atades in ONE FC. It was mid-2016, so I know it was a little less than 2 years ago, but he gets taken down in this fight. When he gets taken down, he doesn't really have a great ground game. He's only a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he's still a novice to it. He had 350 full contact karate fights. So you got to realize that he's been doing karate since he was 13 years old. It's very hard to break that mold now that you're a professional mixed martial arts fighter. It's very hard to all of a sudden say, hey, I'm just going to start wrestling. I'm just going to start doing jiu-jitsu. He's a striker at heart. That's why if Sam Alvey would use his wrestling, I feel like Alvey could take him down. Alvey could neutralize whatever he's going to throw up off his back, and Alvey can steal rounds. This is going to be a close fight. If you're looking at, once again, if you're looking at cash game play, Sam Alvey, 7,200, it's going to be a striking battle. Alvey's not getting taken down. Let's be honest here. Alvey doesn't get taken down by most guys that are way better wrestlers than him, so now you got a striking battle. He doesn't throw a whole lot of volume, but he has the ability to get the knockout, and his cast iron chin will more than likely allow him to go 15 minutes. So he's not the worst play in the world. With Prachnio, he's making his UFC debut because his original debut ended up getting scrapped. So this is the first time he's going to feel those bright lights. He has not fought in, I believe, 6, 7 months, right? So he's coming from ONE FC where he's fighting, the last guy he fought, Gilberto Galvão, putts, total putts. We talk about Alvey used to be a 185er. This guy used to be a 185er. They list him at 6'3". I don't think he's 6'3" because I've seen him next to guys that are 6 foot and he looks around their height. So Alvey being 6'2", Alvey's actually a big guy. Now, if this guy wants to get in a straight up striking battle and he's going to have to fire first because Alvey's not going to fire first, then he'll give him the openings. The opening for Alvey to land that shot. His only his only prior finish loss is against that Alexander Rakic, who we saw make his debut against Barroso, and that guy's tall, rangy striker. This fight goes 3 rounds, and eventually Rakic catches him and he knocks him out. Alvey, he's got the cardio to go 3. He's got power the entire way through. The
volume is the only issue, right?
The volume is the only issue because this kid's got more volume.
If it goes 3 rounds and there's no volume from Alvey and the other guy's moving forward more and like pressing the pace, because Alvey just never presses the pace, then that's how you lose a 3-round decision if Alvey doesn't land the kill shot. But
my
plus
last
200, 7,200, it's like all the value is on Smiling Sam.
That's my last problem here. Let me tell you, Sam Alvey is a cool dude. Like literally, if you could hang out with anybody on this card, maybe next to Mike Perry, because I'm sure that would just be a wild time. Sam Alvey is the man. You couldn't ask for a better guy, right? But I never, and let me tell you, I never put money on Sam Alvey, ever. Because either he's gonna not do anything and lose, or he's not gonna do anything, land 3 punches and knock you out. He's so untrustworthy, I can't do it. And I'm not saying I'm gonna put a whole lot of money on this. What I'm saying is +2, what is it right now? It's plus 210. Shit, that's some good value against a UFC newcomer. That's some legitimate good value. Yep. And the second thing is, in a world where you're looking for punt plays that can get a finish, in a world where you're constantly looking for value, this is not a big favorite. He's plus 150, no chance am I touching this. He's plus 210, I feel like he is being underrated in this spot. People were picking him over Ameev, which is crazy to me, because he was never going to win that fight. This is a way easier fight than that, and you're disrespecting him by saying his opponent's a 2.5 to 1 favorite. I just don't get it. So for that reason, let's live up to dog or pass, baby, because I'm taking the dog or I'm taking the pass.
Hani Yahya takes on Russell Doane in the next fight here. We got Hani Yahya 9,300, Russell Doane 6,900, minus 250, Rani Yahya and Russell Doane plus 210. The interesting thing about this scrap here is that Rani Yahya was like minus 400 earlier in the week. Like when this line opened and then it surged up on his side, and I was like, did Russell Doane lose like a leg, or am I missing something here? Because like that was out of control. The thing about Yahya, like if Yahya gets this fight to the ground, Russell Doane is done. Done.
More than
pretty much. But if Doane's able to keep it at distance, land some strikes, keep it in his type of range, and not allow Yahya to take him down in those first couple rounds. We've seen Yahya gas so bad where he's just kind of diving at a leg, trying to secure a takedown at the end of the fight. I cannot, even at minus, I would bet Yahya at minus 150. 9,300, like you need him to secure takedowns. He's not a great wrestler.
Nope.
This just screams pass. If I could get Doane at the price that was earlier in the week, that was ludicrous that they were even floating that thing out there, I would, but I don't have any of the sites with the openers these days anymore. So it is what it is. But this one just kind of screams pass to me all around. What about you? Yeah,
I'm gonna go with the dog here again, and I'm gonna go Russell Doane. I think we realize as Rani Yahya that he's just hot fire on the ground. If you end up on the ground with him, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu high level black belt, former 2007 ADCC champion, would never win the ADCCs again. But at the time, certainly, it just goes to show, he says he's been training for something like, I think he said he started training when he was like 10 years old or something. He's 33 now. Like, think about it, man. He's got 23 years of experience under his belt, most of which has been jiu-jitsu. But unlike Formiga, where we talked about Formiga a couple weeks ago in the Ben Nguyen fight, where it was like, oh, you know, Ben Nguyen keeps his fight standing. Actually, you like Formiga, so this is my bad. But I thought, well, if Ben Nguyen keeps the fight standing, he's a better striker. Formiga's wrestling's really not all that good. Formiga's a way better wrestler than Rani Yahya. Formiga's striking is a lot better than Rani Yahya is. And Formiga's gas tank's a lot better than Rani Yahya.
What we like seeing about Formiga there is that he threw that spinning stuff. starting to incorporate that. When you have such an advantage on the ground, you might as well be like Brian Ortega, just throwing spin and stuff, and jump flying knees and stuff. Because like, what are people gonna do? Take you down? Like then you're in their world.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen the athleticism or anything like that from Yahya.
No, Yahya doesn't throw spinning stuff. He doesn't throw flying knees. He doesn't throw dynamic, but he does throw heat. He doesn't really have any power, but he'll throw a wild overhand right. He'll throw those kind of techniques that you don't expect from a guy like him, especially, and they'll land. It's just what's he gonna do after he lands. I think you really nailed it in you saying that his cardio is not all that good. Because if you look at his recent winning streak, it usually comes down to some dicey situations where his cardio is not all that good.
Unless he finds the submission in round 1.
Yeah, but against Enrique Briones, it's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, exactly. You just submitted him in the first round. I mean, that's a good performance by Rani Yahya standards, but the best performance that I had seen with him in his last little bit with Matthew Lopez. Lopez was making his debut at the time. Lopez hadn't really experienced those bright lights, and Lopez won that first round against Yahya. In fact, people might consider it a bit of a slip, but he drops Rani Yahya. The fight with Rani Yahya in Michinori Tanaka, Yahya wins the first 2 rounds. It's in Brazil. He flat gasses, and Tanaka wins the 3rd round, but Yahya gets the decision. Against Kanehara, I thought Kanehara won. You just said diving on ankles? Yo, you ever want to see an ankle dive? Watch the Kanehara fight where he is so gassed out.
Oh my God, let me survive.
I don't want to stand anymore. And he literally he's not shooting at the hips. He's not shooting on a single leg. He's shooting on a low
borderline quitting, but his opponent didn't have enough in the tank to do anything about it.
And it's a split decision, and it's like, oh shit, Yahya got the split. I thought Kanehara won, but the first round, dude,
I got Yahya, so
it's like, oh dude, first round, man, Yahya's actually pretty good. Second round's like,
how did this guy become like at one point he was a -400 favorite. He's the biggest favorite on the card at one point this week.
Yes. Because Russell Doane was coming off a 4-fight losing streak prior to winning his last fight. Sure. I mean, he should have been cut. And beyond that, he was a 5-1 favorite against Jared Sanders, who completely dominated him on the ground.
Yeah.
We've seen him in fights against Pedro Munoz, where he's having a hot start.
He had a great start.
Dude, great start against a tough guy.
That's what Munoz does, though.
Yes, and I think when you're thinking about, well, high-level jiu-jitsu and a high-level ground game is definitely the key to beating a guy like Russell Doane, well, then Rani Yahya does possess that. If he's able to, in transition, get the back in the first round, then he's probably going to choke a guy like Russell Doane out. But Russell Doane trained for a long time in Hawaii. He's got great training partners around him, but he got stagnant, you know? He's not a guy that's completely a fish out of water on the ground when you consider in his UFC debut, he fought Leandro Issa, who's a 3rd-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he choked him out unconscious with a triangle choke. He was a purple belt at the time, and he just beat a high-level guy. He's not the worst on the ground. It's just you fight so many high-level guys. And Jared Sanders, by the way, wrestling for days. Terrible fighter, but just a very good wrestler. So styles make fights, and he was just
incredibly strong and physical.
And this dude fought a really bad game plan. Russell Doane did. It was just terrible ring IQ. But I feel like at 31, he's maturing a little bit. So he decides to himself eventually, I'm on a 4-fight losing streak. I gotta kind of go do something else. I gotta try something else. He moves to California and he goes to Team Oyama. Team Oyama is known for breeding a lot of good wrestlers. Carla Esparza, I don't know how I feel about her, but she's out of that gym. Ian McCall's out of that gym. Joe Soto's out of that gym. There's good fighters that come out of that gym that are very versatile, very skilled. Georgie Karahanyan, guys that are well-rounded everywhere. That seems to be making a little bit of an improvement with him because he goes out, he gets the first round finish. On top of that, Bubba Jenkins is there, right? Bubba Jenkins, he's working with a bunch of good wrestling guys out of Team Oyama that are they're pushing him. But the Joe Soto thing is what I think is going to make a huge difference because Joe Soto, super untrustworthy, not on a great run right now. Rani Yahya's last loss, right? And Rani Yahya in that fight, he's doing okay against Joe Soto, but he can't really take Soto down, who's a good wrestler. It stays standing. He gets flat out tired and he gets beat up by Joe Soto. So I really think that that's the key for Russell Doane. You train with guys like that. You can learn a wealth of knowledge from Joe Soto, who's probably going to be a better coach than he's going to be a fighter at this point. He'll teach you all these things that you need to do against Yahya. You go out there, you're a way better striker than this guy. You are a ranger than this guy. And just realize he's going to try to take you down.
He's going to dive at your legs. He's going to just do anything in his power to try to get you down.
Dude, be super patient.
But he's going to look real desperate if he doesn't get it.
Yeah, in the first round, this would be the worst game plan
And then he'll be vulnerable. In round 2, he's going to be so vulnerable.
I would tell him in this first round, I'd say, don't throw many kicks whatsoever.
Like none.
Backpedal and just jab. If you see the opening for the right hand, take the opening right hand. Don't throw no kicks and backpedal. Okay? In the second round, he's going to be tired. In the third round, take him out. maybe you're down 2 rounds. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully it's 1-1 and you just take him out in the 3rd. Or you win the 3rd and you get the decision.
Yep.
But I feel like he's going to be in a better spot in his career. He's coming off a win. Let's not think he's still on that 4-fight losing streak. Maybe he's getting a little bit better. Maybe he's turned a corner. He really wasn't all that bad to begin with. Plus 210 is supreme value. And Rani Yahya, I don't like. So I think Yahya started off as this 4-1 favorite. People are probably thinking on the same line that that's overvalued for Rani Yahya and undervalued for Russell Doane, and you punch some money on it. Would we have liked to get Russell Doane for a better price? Absolutely, but plus 210 is still a good price, and then $6,900 on DraftKings. Come on. Rani Yahya is actually pretty durable. It would be hard to knock him out, but it's Rani Yahya. I mean, you look at Rani Yahya's... I made a point, I want to just... My last point on this.
Yep.
Is Rani Yahya's losses, because he's 9-3 in the UFC, right? It's actually a pretty good record. Enrique Briones, terrible. Got the win, whatever. Lost to Joe Soto, who I like him, but people could classify him as not very good. Tanaka, cut from the UFC. Matthew Lopez, average at best. Kanahara, cut from the UFC. Johnny Bedford, cut from the UFC.
Yep.
Motherfucker lost to Tom Nitamaki, dude. Lost to Tom Nitamaki. By the way, also cut from the UFC. Josh Clopton, Mizuta Harada, but that was 2013. Josh Grisby. Dude.
Do any of his wins actually still have jobs? Maybe Briones still does.
Well, Hiroto just lost to Ross Pearson in what was actually somewhat close of a fight. And Matthew Lopez, who's also coming off a loss.
Fair.
Technically still in. And that's it, right?
Yeah.
So when he wins, it's over the lowest level. Now, I know a lot of people will say, Cody, Russell Doane's
not the highest level.
Yeah,
this is the guy who had four fight losing streak coming in his last fight.
But using that mentality of, well, Rani Yahya beats shitty guys and Russell Doane's a shitty guy. That's going to get you caught.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to get you...
Especially when you're laying minus 250, that's for sure.
Yeah, stay away from that. This is another dogger pass. Or play. I actually just want to play Russell Doane.
Moving on down the card, we have Alex Perez taking on Eric Shelton. 8,700 Alex Perez, 7,500 Eric Shelton, minus 135 Perez, plus 115 Shelton. If you're looking just for value from odds to DraftKings pricing, like Eric Shelton, 7,500 to a 115 underdog. That's, a pretty telltale sign. Vegas has nothing in this game. They have nothing in the DraftKings side of things. So the disparity there would lead you towards Eric Shelton. The problem with this fight is it's going to be dicey. Every Eric Shelton fight is pretty dicey. High pace, so that's a nice little reward. But the guy has every single fight of his real close, real... he may have won, he may have lost. Every round seems pretty close, except for that Lausa fight in his last time out. So, if I'm going to play anybody on DraftKings, it's Eric Shelton at 7,500. 8,700 for what I think is basically a pick'em fight for Alex Perez. You got to be confident that he catches him with a submission in that fight for him to pay that off. And I'm not sure he will. No. I think it could be real scrambly. I think it could be scary. But it's Shelton or bust for me.
No, yeah, for 8,700 on Alex Perez, you either want a lot of takedowns, which it's hard on Shelton, because Shelton will stuff the initial entry. He'll stuff the initial takedown or two. You might be able to get him down, and he'll pop back up. So I think the thought process on Perez is you either need a submission, which I don't see happening, or you need multiple takedowns, which is also going to be very difficult. If you think about Eric Shelton, this is not the toughest guy he's fought, man. He beat Yoni Sherbatov in The Ultimate Fighter, who everybody knows how high I am on Yoni Sherbatov. You ever seen Yoni Sherbatov fight? Total beast. He had a majority decision over 2 rounds against Tim Elliott. I think everybody realized how good he is, especially fighting guys on The Ultimate Fighter. It was a cut above. Nobody even gave him remotely a tough fight.
He was a 15 seed. Nobody even. He was a complete no name, and he made a name for himself.
Yeah, and then beyond that, he goes into the actual Ultimate Fighting Championship, and a split decision loss to Pantoja in a close fight, a split decision loss to Jared Brooks in a close fight, and then he beats Janelle Losa. So to think he's just going to get taken down, dominated, and submitted, probably not going to happen. This guy's only 27. He's been making a bunch of improvements. Takedown defense checks out. Striking checks out. The one thing I am concerned is that he was spending a lot of time at Elevation Fight Team, working out with, at the time, TJ Dillashaw, working out at the time with Neil Magny and Matt Brown and those guys. And he has since left there, gone back to Texas, I believe, and he's working a lot with Pete Spratt, who's love me some Pete Spratt, the secret weapon, but not really known for his grappling game, mostly just a Muay Thai striker. He's in good shape, he's 27, he's got the goods. With Alex Perez, Alex Perez has not really fought the same level of competition, I don't believe, but he's got the keys to beating a guy like Shelton because, like you said, Shelton's in close fights, and normally it's like maybe he can win this round if he does a little bit more. But the reason why is that the Janelle Losa fight, Losa's a former pro boxer. It's going to be a stand-up battle. If you give this guy a stand-up battle, he'll show you really how good he is. If you give him those other guys, Brooks, not going to have a stand-up battle with you.
No.
Pantoja, not going to have a stand-up battle with you. Tim Elliott will strike long enough to try to set up a takedown on you.
But crafty enough to kind of play it wherever he has an advantage.
And it's those fights where it's like, well, he was doing good standing, but now he's had his back against the cage for a minute and a half. And he's shut it, well, maybe he's getting out grappled a little bit. Those are dicey fights. And in dicey fights, you never know what you're going to get. But he's the dog. So even though this is going to be a nail biter, better to have the dog in a nail biter and hope that he gets the decision. And for 7,500, I don't love it on a GPP because I also don't see him getting the finish. For on a cash game situation, stuff some takedowns, maybe even get some takedowns of your own and just try to get some volume striking going. The fight with Janelle Losa actually scored pretty good. So for 7,500, if you can have a repeat performance, something even nearly close to that, I don't mind it. This is a close fight. I am going to go Shelton, but this is not a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. Perez is training with Russell Doane at Team Oyama. We covered how good those guys are. This should be a close fight, but hopefully it's a close fight that goes for Sheldon for a change instead of a split decision against him. If it's a split decision against him again, shit, does this guy got bad luck losing 3 of those in his last 4.
Moving on down, we got Manny Bermudez taking on Albert Morales. Manny Bermudez, 8,800 on DraftKings, 7,400 Morales. Minus 170 on the betting line, Bermudez, plus 150 Morales. I watched a little bit of Manny Bermudez on the regional scene, his fights leading up, undefeated prospect here. And my one takeaway, I was like, oh, this guy has like a killer instinct when he's, they call him the Bermudez Triangle.
Oh, cool name.
Yeah, cool nickname. I'm sure one of the people in your gym gave you that one. You didn't just think it up and make it up for yourself. Dennis
Bermudez is sitting at home going, shit, I wish I thought of that.
Well, he's never actually landed a triangle either. It would be real fraudulent for him to have that nickname. But
I'm just saying, once you come in, you don't get out.
Yeah. What I couldn't really put my finger on is just like, how good are these guys that he's taking on? Like, it just didn't look, I wasn't impressed by the level of his opponents. It looked really low level. And if we know anything about Morales, he's no world beater or anything, but the guy's super tough. Nickname is the Warrior for a reason. The guy's going to move forward. He's going to land hands on you. He's got a great chin, lots of durability, tough to take down. He's pretty well-rounded. This is a tough debut fight for you if you're not completely well-rounded. And I haven't seen enough from Manny Bermudez to lead me to believe that 8,800 on DraftKings, you need that first-round submission from what I've seen on tape. Minus 170, plus 150. I feel as though that line's almost the books saying, like, wait, I have no idea how this is going to play out. So the lean here would be towards Morales. Not sure if I'm going to play anybody on DraftKings, it's going to be Morales. And I'm not going to be betting it myself. What's your take?
Yeah, I got to go to Morales. I think he gets a bit of an unfair shake when you consider that you look at his record and it doesn't seem all that good. He's never been submitted, first and foremost. He's fighting a guy that's strictly a jiu-jitsu guy for the most part, and he's never been submitted. The only time he's been finished, Thomas Almeida, human highlight reel, guys in Brazil, co-main event. I mean, it's a tough spot for these guys. And Morales goes in there, unfortunately got caught, but he really didn't have that bad of a first round. But it's the fact that he's more seasoned, he's had fights in the UFC, and quite honestly, he got robbed in his last fight against Benito Lopez. Not robbed, it's a close fight. I just happen to think he won. But he did get robbed against Alejandro Perez in a fight that ended up being a draw when I thought fairly clearly he won 2 of those 3 rounds and took the fight on short notice. So he shouldn't have that draw against Perez, who's really proven to not be all that bad. And his last fight against Benito Lopez, think about that for a moment. Benito Lopez was 8-0 at the time. He's undefeated, young, prospect, training out of a good gym. Morales goes out there and gives him war. And it happened to go against him. Now he's getting a lesser talented, undefeated, young prospect, and he's going to do the same thing, man. He's going to go in there and he's going to give him more. I just don't think Manny Bermudez will be equipped to handle that. He's got 1 KO on his record, the rest are submission. He's fairly a one-dimensional submission game. He's been doing jiu-jitsu since he's 13 years old, yet he's still only a purple belt. He's a dynamic purple belt. He loves that triangle. But triangle chokes work on low-level regional scene guys or low-level UFC guys who are just at the bottom of the basement. You don't see triangles at the highest level. I realize Albert Morales is not the highest level, but he's training with tough guys. He's working a lot on his wrestling. He's been working with Bubba Jenkins, so you know his game plan is keep this fight standing, put hands on this kid, and this kid's never experienced that. I want to actually have a poll because this kid's 23 years old, right? And I know he's not 18, he's not 19, it's not like 23 is the youngest in the world. I'm only 26. But when I think of how long 23, how long 3 years ago seems. It's like, man, everything changes. Your life changed, your interests changed, everything in your life changed. I talked to a couple people prior to filming this. I says, what were you doing at 23? The most prevalent answer was cocaine, right? What I was doing at 23 was living with Pat Mayo, cooking sausages out of a fucking pan, right? Life changes. Now you start eating better. Now you know how to cook stuff. Now you don't go to the Korean barber for a $5 haircut. Fucking things change, Paul. This guy is undefeated. He's going to need that humbling experience eventually.
We'll talk about beard cut with that. You didn't have that beard back in those days either.
Well, I had a beard, but I used to trim my neck hair. And then, fuck, everything just went out the window. Now that I'm 26, life is over. All jokes aside, though, tweet us, what were you doing at 23 years old? And I'm sure, don't be embarrassed, I'm sure it wasn't living the high life. But yeah, no, you and I, we talk about this a lot. The Sage Northcotts of the world, the Jake Matthews of the world, these young kids, is that they're going to have humbling experiences, they're going to have some setbacks, and they're going to continue to get better. Manny Bermudez will continue to get better. He will be one of those guys that is infinitely better at 25, infinitely better at 28, and who knows where he'll be by the time he's 30. But at this very moment, he's still undefeated. He's still got to experience that first setback. He's going to experience the bright lights of the UFC. He's not one of these Dana White Contender Series guys who at least experienced being in Vegas with the bright lights. He's not one of these Ultimate Fighter guys. He's not even one of these guys that experienced a big win over a tough UFC veteran prior to getting here. He fought some okay level guys, but mostly journeymen, guys that are over the hill. And when he fought Almeida, I believe he fought to a split decision in what was a close fight. So I expect him to go out there and have Morales does what Morales does. And that's have a tough, close fight where I believe he'll get the nod this time around. And finally, Paul, can't have an episode without a Greasy Theory. So Greasy Theory is Manny Bermudez lists his two strengths as A, jiu-jitsu, which obviously one of his strengths. His second strength is he says he's got the best coaches in the world. So you might think, wow, best coaches in the world. Where's this guy train? Not ATT, not AKA, not Greg Jackson's, not Alliance, not MMA Lab, not any of those top gyms. He trains at South Shore Sport Fighting. South Shore Sport Fighting out of Massachusetts. What are they known for? Josh Grisby was the only real guy that they ever produced at a higher level. And in many ways, I don't think he's going to end up like Josh Grisby, who's now in jail for getting his dog to maul his girlfriend, his fiancée. Terrible run to go down for Grisby.
That's peak MMA right there.
But Grisby,
real winners in this sport.
Was young, and he was, you know, on a great roll, and he was a one-dimensional jiu-jitsu guy. And I remember he subbed Mark Hominick out in the first round. He was like, dude, wow, Mark Hominick, very tough, very veteran guy, subbed him in the first round. Subbed former lightweight champion Jens Pulver in 33 seconds. Went 4-0 in the WEC, was granted a title shot. In his first fight in the UFC, going to get a title shot against Jose Aldo back in 2011. Aldo hurts his back, fight never happens, he goes on a 4-fight losing streak, gets smashed along the way, loses to Ronnie Yahya, loses to Dustin Poirier, loses to all these guys, eventually gets flamed out and was never to be seen ever again. Sometimes you're young, sometimes you're looking good, sometimes you're just a one-dimensional submission guy, and you will catch some guys. But eventually, some hard-ass motherfucker like Albert Morales gets in your face and lets you feel some shots and stuffs some takedowns, and that changes everything. And to be honest, I think Morales gets the job done. And this is a card that is a dicey card, but for my money's worth, once again, going to use this expression because I am putting money down. Morales is a dog, I don't mind him. Sheldon's a slight dog,
that's the problem that we have.
Doane's a dog, Alvey's a dog. Beyond that, I like JOUBAN, I like Hill, I like McMahon, I like BARAO.
It's the problem that we have on DraftKings, though, is where are you spending up?
Where am I going to spend up on DraftKings?
Because we've been kind of going through, and it's just like there's a lot of underdogs that we think have a good chance.
That's true. Well, this is one of those cards you could probably just fit everybody you want, you know? If you like Angela Hill, because she's a volume puncher, and she should be able to land at a decent clip.
It's pretty cheap.
It's a great price. I'm going to pay up on JOUBAN, the 9,100, because I just happen to feel he's going to get the finish, right? Beyond that, you talked me into, if you're going big on a GPP, Stevens has got 5 rounds to work with, and he can get a 4th or 5th round finish if Emmett completely gasses out. Latifi's a great price. I could see going for him. Jessica Andrade, because she's fighting an elusive target like Torres, I don't love it, but if she just picks this girl up and slams her and gets some ground and pound in and tries for some submissions, get some passes, she'll roll up.
That's where I'm spending up maybe a little bit of Alan JOUBAN, but it's I do like a lot of the underdogs as we move down the card, to be honest.
You know what? This is the prime example of a Dogger Pass podcast because a lot of these guys, it's either...
Dogger Pass card.
Ooh, a Dogger Pass card. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I probably meant to say, is that you either want the dog because you're going to get some better value or you should pass because there's some close fights here where
there's
the value
some people that are like making their debuts that are significantly overrated, I think. These are not like, from what I've seen on tape at least, these are not like game changer prospects coming into the organization.
Yeah, and if you don't like the dog, when you look at the fights where you actually like the favorite, the pricing's off. And Josh for 320, I don't love it. The Mike Perry fight, don't like the value. McMahon and JOUBAN, pricing's definitely off. So probably better to make some small plays on your dogs. You know me, I'm gonna parlay them up together. And it'll be supreme value.
All right, that is it for us. Hope you enjoyed the show. For Cody Saftic, my co-host, and Pat Mayo for giving me a little notepad here this week so that I didn't tap the desk.
Tap dancing Paul.
We're making progress here. For Pat and Cody, I'm Paul saying goodbye and good luck.